Hi, ladies and gentlemen. It's Mawusi Raglan here, known as WuRag, and I am so happy to have with us today Anna Kassim, and she's going to share with us today about her overcoming trauma. So thank you so much for joining us today, Anna. How are you?
I'm good, Woo. Thank you so much for having me on your show. It's a pleasure.
You are welcome. Thank you so much for being here with us all. So, what would you like to share with us today, Miss Anna?
So I would like to share with everyone my sexual abuse story that happened to me at 14 years old. And I hope that it resonates with everyone out there, women, children, that's suffering from any type of abuse. This doesn't necessarily have to mean a sexual abuse. And I want to make sure that my story gets told to hopefully inspire others to do the same.
Yes, thank you so much. So, what do you think is important that people should know?
So it's very important to be aware when we are having those trigger moments, especially when we recall those past memories that are always going to come up. It's not something that is going to be completely out of your mind. It's not something that even if you do seek therapy, it's always a constant work, right? That we have to be working on ourselves. Just like whether you had a trauma or not, we always are learning a lesson.
Yeah.
And so the important part is to remember that you can get out of this. This is happened to you for a reason. And there is the light at the end of the tunnel. So that's my takeaway.
Thank you so much. Tell us a little bit about your childhood. How was it growing up?
Growing up, my childhood was very, it was a happy childhood, but also I could say that I did lack in some things. My mom was a single parent almost since the time that I was born. At only 3, 4 months, she was divorced very, very early on from my biological father. I never met him. I was essentially raised by my grandparents, and she had to take care of the household. So that's how I grew up in Mexico. By the age of 7 and 8, she migrated to the US, and brought me on board when I was around that time, 7 or 8 years old. And that was very traumatic for me because I didn't know where I was going. I didn't want to be away from my grandparents. The only parents that I had at that time, I saw my mother more like a sister figure
Yes.
than my mom. So it was kind of traumatic as well for me because I knew that she was my mom, but I considered more my grandparents as my parents, if
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Okay. So you had a very nice childhood. Your grandparents really
Yes.
played a part in your life.
Yes, instill me very great values, provide me that love and care that every child should have, that nurturing. Yes, I always felt very loved and cared by them.
Oh, good. So how was it when in your teenage years?
So, in my teenage years, I was a girl that was very nerdy. I would consider myself very nerdy. I wasn't usually the girl that wanted to party or wear makeup or, was into the it stuff. I was more like a nerd. I would say I was into my books. I had so many dreams. I wanted to, be so many things. If one day I didn't want to be a nurse, the next day I wanted to be like an FBI agent or something. I was always in between those things. But yeah, I was a laid back girl. Um just doing your typical things.
Yes. So did you ever have a time where you met your biological father, or were you raised not knowing him?
I never knew him at all. So he was never part of my life growing up until this point in my life as becoming a teenager. I wanted to meet him for so long. I always questioned my mom about him. I wanted to know where he came from, more about my grandparents, my paternal grandparents, my family, um, just to know him. And all I had was pictures and stories that my grandparents would tell me. My grandparents never talked bad about him or anything. They just never spoke about him at all. They just kind of didn't want to get in between my mom and him in that situation. So growing up, they just made sure that I was loved. And so I never really grew up with him. Um, Growing up in a Mexican household, I'm sure you know that we do have parties. We have quinceañera parties,
Yes,
you
yes,
know, coming of
absolutely.
age.
I grew up with my best friend. Her whole family was Hispanic. I know about quinceañeras and the
Yes,
culture
the
and the culture.
party, the glam. Essentially, it's celebrating women coming of age.
The thing.
And so it's very a part, an important part of our culture. So I was at this time 14 years old, which is when the planning begins a year prior to. And this is when my mom finds my biological father, to be able to be a part of it because she knew how much it meant to me, that I wanted to meet my father and knew, know who he was. We do find him at that time.
Because you
Yeah.
grew up not knowing who he was, right? So you met your father.
Yes. So I essentially meet my father a year prior of me turning 15 years old. Um, I meet him and I was ecstatic, a little shy at first, obviously, because I essentially it was a man that I never knew, but I wanted to get to know. And he started coming around often, like every other weekend. He would come and take me out to dinner and send money. He would give my mom money and like we kind of like bonded. He bought me he I remember he even bought me a cell phone, which at the time in the early 2000s, it was like a big deal. Hardly anyone had a cell phone. Um, and he did this in order for us to communicate.
Yeah,
And we did communicate. We had a relationship where he would call me every other day, almost every day, and we built a friendship, so to speak, and me getting to know about him, more about him, and him getting to know more about me, which it felt good. When somebody takes an interest, especially a parent figure. My mom was always busy, so he made me feel like I could trust him and be close to him.
absolutely. What when you say he made you feel like you could trust him? Did something occur to make you not trust him?
No, but I felt like he was being like more like a friend, somebody that I could talk to. Like he made me feel comfortable. Like if anything happens, tell me about your day. I'm here for you. Just made me feel more comfortable. Versus my mom, she was always busy. I mean, I did have other siblings. I'm the oldest. And so she was busy with them and she was always busy working. So me and her never really had that close relationship because as a mother, I guess it was difficult for her at that time to take the time and get to know who I was as a teenager versus here comes my biological dad and he gives me all that attention that I don't have with my mother at home.
Right, but was there ever a time that you couldn't trust your father?
Um, not at that moment.
Okay,
I didn't feel that as of yet because he, like I said, it was like a long distance. I saw him, but whenever I saw him, we were always doing something. We were out
right.
to
He
eat,
was
then we
very
would
big
leave.
with you.
So it was very casual. So there was not a reason for me not to trust him.
Okay, so
Mhm.
share with us about your dad, you and your father, because this is a big turning point in your life. You grew up not knowing who he was. You grew up
Mhm.
with your grandparents raising you, with your
Right.
mother helping. She grew up more like a sister figure to you. And then
Yes.
your big day was going to come when you were turning 15 for your
Yes.
quinceañera.
Was
And,
really excited about that. Yes.
and you were 14 at the time when your father reunited you with your father.
Yes.
Okay.
And so that's pretty much how my relationship started with him, getting to know him, getting that closeness. And so when he asked for me to spend the summer with him a couple months before me turning 15 and essentially me going to high school, this was a big deal for me. I was celebrating the end of middle school and he wanted to take me to see his hometown because he lived in a small town, a couple hours away from where I lived. And so my mom agreed. She was like, yeah, why not? It will be a good bonding experience for you. You can go, he is your dad, and you're pretty grown at this moment to make that decision. Is up to you. And I agreed. I wanted to get to know my dad more, where he lived, what did he do. I was eager to get to know all of that.
All right. So then what happened after that? Did you stayed the summer with him? And how was the relationship with the both of you?
So the relationship up to that point had been great. Like, I consider him like almost like as a friend. Yes, like a parent. I was ecstatic. I would like tell my friends, like, oh, my dad is in my life now. Like, I have a dad. So I was just ecstatic that I had that connection with him and that we got along great. But it was more like a friendship thing. But I knew that he was my dad, if that makes sense. So I was still seeking that father figure relationship with him, versus the way he came across. It was more like, oh, but I'm like a friend to you. You can tell me anything. So that made me feel comfortable. And so that's when my life changed, on that trip on that trip that he was taking me on,
For
going back
those,
home to
yes,
spend the summer with him,
yes.
because we yes. So we went halfway there. He expresses that he is just a little tired, that he might need to pull over, and maybe take a break. And I'm here sitting and thinking like, okay, maybe we'll head to a rest stop or something. I don't know. I know that when because in my mind, crossing from Mexico to the US, there are rest stops. So I really didn't think anything of it. I was like, okay, sure, we can take a rest and take a pause, and we can continue moving forward. I didn't really, I mean, I trusted him. He was my dad.
Right, absolutely.
So he then makes sure that he makes me feel comfortable. We're listening to songs on the radio. Everything is normal up until
Having
this
a good
point.
time with your dad.
Yeah, we're bonding, we're laughing, we got some food, everything was chill, normal. However, he pulls up to a random hotel. Um and I didn't like he something that he never mentioned. Like I said, it never came up in conversation, just that he needed the rest time. As he's pulling up to the hotel, he's like, oh, I need a rest. I need rest. And at this point, something is inside of me is feeling anxious, because I didn't know that we were going to go to a hotel. And this is kind of weird to me. Like, okay, I'm over here overthinking. I'm an overthinker, so I'm like, okay, are we going to get two rooms? Are we going to take a quick nap and then leave quickly,
Because to you, you're
something?
like, this is my father, but still, I just met him on the
Something was,
ride.
yes, like something in me was like, this is not what I'm used
Your
to.
body was signaling,
My body was not
it was
with it.
telling you, right?
Absolutely.
Like,
And so he ended up getting a one bedroom. Um, and so I proceeded to go and just like rest, but I was feeling really, really nervous. And he was like, oh, it's okay. Like I just need to rest or whatever. But then he proceeds to say that, oh, I'm gonna go ahead and take a shower. So he proceeds to take a shower, which was kind of odd to me because the whole situation by that point was already odd, but it was odd to me because I was like, he's a little too open. Like, I know that we have built a bond already, but I'm like, he doesn't know me and I don't know him yet like that, like for him to be too open with me, right? I wouldn't feel comfortable doing the same if it was me, like, oh, I'm tired, or it was awkward.
yes.
And so I proceeded to I was feeling tired. And it's been a long trip. So I proceeded to just lay down in the bed and take a nap myself, and not just like not wanting to think about the whole thing. I was like, no, Anna, like you're overthinking, like he's your dad, nothing bad is gonna happen, like just go to sleep. Like that was my first instinct, to just take a nap myself. And as I did that, I the next thing I know, like everything just happened like so quickly. But at the same time, I feel like that's just the way that I processed it. That's when the abuse happened, the first time that he sexually abused me. And for me, it was like an out of body experience.
Yes.
I really didn't, I disconnected from myself. Like I wasn't ever the same after that. That was the first time that he did that, and it continued for the rest of the summer, my time with him.
How did you get through that, Anna? Because I think a lot of girls are probably going through something, if not with their own father, with someone that they
Mhm.
know that's close to them within the family or a friend or whatnot. And how did you get through that?
How I overcame that, actually, in the beginning, I didn't, right? I stayed quiet. And this is part of my message, because I didn't talk for so long. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't tell my mom. I rebelled in the way that I didn't really do drugs, or, you know, acted out, or like did go drinking or with my friends or anything. I actually isolated myself. I
Yeah.
became really, really depressed. I was always in my room. I was never the girl that partied, because that wasn't me anyway. So I just
Yes.
became more and more depressed. Yes, my mom did starting to notice those things, but at the same time, she would take it as, oh, she's just growing up, she just wants to be alone. That was her thinking me being rebellious. And so he, by that time too, I didn't know that he had already told her, prepared her, so to speak, that I just was being rebellious. That's why I'm saying it in those terms, because that's actually his words to her, like, oh, she's just being rebellious. There's nothing much to talk about anymore. Like, I don't, as like, we don't have nothing in common, I so it's her choice. I'm gonna give her that choice. So he kind of like backed away from the situation, because he knew that he was, I'm thinking now that he knew that if I would talk, that he was afraid of going to prison because of what he did.
Yes.
And so for so long, the way that I've dealt with it was just by staying quiet. And I got married really young, at only 18 years old. That was my way of escaping.
Because you never told
And
your mother, correct?
I'm sorry,
Never told your mother or your
I
grandparents
never
you
told
opened
no
up.
one.
Right.
I never told anyone, not even when I got married. I didn't tell my first husband. Nobody knew. Nobody knew
Got
that
married
this,
at
this
18. Correct.
I'm married at 18, because I wanted to escape from my home, because I did blame my mom for so long, and my mom didn't even know why. Nobody knew why I was acting the way, very distant. I didn't like my mom touching me or hugging me. Even in my marriage, I didn't like certain things triggered me. So
Yes.
a lot of things happened for me to even begin to cope, connecting the dots, that it was because of my trauma. It affected me in my first marriage. I didn't want to be touched a certain way. Even when I had kids, I did suffer from postpartum depression, because I didn't even my own kids touch sometimes triggered me, because it was just like I just didn't want to be touched. And so finally, the way that I started dealing with it was, by this time, I have gotten divorced from my first marriage. I was already into my second marriage, and my biological father contacts me. He calls me out of nowhere and tells me, if I need anything, if I need money, that he was willing to send me money. But the way that he was coming about it was to make sure that I would stay silent. And that's what broke the ice for me. That's what made me feel overwhelmed and very anxious, that I hanged up immediately, blocked him, and I called my mom, and I had to sat her down and be like, I need to tell you something, because this has gone way too far, and it's affected me so much in my life that I just can't do it anymore. I need to tell you. And the person that's the closest to me, the person that you're my mom, like you need to know that this happened to me. And that's when I finally started my healing journey, when I told her the truth. Of course, she was really upset about it. She was sad at the fact that I didn't speak up sooner. I was afraid that I would be rejected, that she wouldn't believe me. But the fact that my mom did believe me at that moment was everything to me. Um, that's how I started healing. I sought therapy. I did report it. We did report it to the police. Unfortunately, by this time in my state, the statute of limitation was already like, it already had expired for me to say something. However, a police report was made, and she did let him know that we did report it. But by that time, he had run away to Mexico. So he did run away from Mexico. So that's essentially what happened. How I started my healing journey, by seeking therapy.
What suggestions do you have for other victims that may be suffering in silence?
I suggest you telling someone your story, somebody that you really confide in. If it's not your parent, your immediate family, if you feel like they're not going to believe you, seek help as well. Tell the closest person that you really, really trust, and then seek help. There are a lot of sources that help me that could help you guys as well. What helped me too a lot, it's the organization NSVRC, which stands for National Sexual Violence Resources. They provide resources for victims of sexual violence. They provide a hotline, which is actually that program is called RAIN. You can talk to them. You can chat with them online. You don't even have to call them if you don't feel comfortable talking on the phone. They just provide so many good resources. They're always on social media, and I'm a really big advocate for them, because they help me so much, and they can help you contact your local um, crisis center, rape crisis center. That's what I wanted to say. That's what they do. And I'll go ahead and make sure and give Wu those links so she can post it in her socials as well. That's what I did. I also recently started working with a life coach, Justin Hakeem. If you guys um, would like to get to know him, he is available on social media as well. He's helped me so much as well, because like I said, this healing journey. I been going through it, and it's something that you constantly have to work on. It's not something that you get to talk about it and then you're magically healed. This is something that you get to live with, but there is hope, like I said, by you seeking help and talking to someone about it. It starts your healing journey.
And what is life like for you today?
Life for me today is amazing, because I have discovered myself. I've started to love myself more and spending more time with my children. I do have 4 children now. I've been divorced twice, but I have discovered that there's no other love better than, of course, my children, but also self-love. I've learned to love myself and not let this traumatic experience define me. One of my favorite quotes that I do go by, it's by Maya Angelou, that says, I can be changed by what happens to me, but I refuse to be reduced by it.
Yes.
And so that's what has helped me pull through the fact that I'm not a victim. I'm a survivor, and I'm here to let you guys know that you guys can get through it as well. It's definitely not easy, but you can do it.
Yes. Be transformed by by the renewing of your mind. Be
Yes.
transformed by the renewing of your mind. And that's how you
Yes.
make it through getting over the difficulties and the traumas in life, reaching out for help,
Yeah.
talking about it, telling someone, sharing your story, because those things will set you free. How can the audience get in contact with you?
Audience can reach me. Available in social media as the China doll _143. And also, I do also have my own podcast called the China Dot Podcast, which I give other people the voice to be able to share their own stories and take their power back. And it's how I met you, Wu. I'm really grateful. There's no coincidence in this life. And I feel that God has brought us together for me to be able to even share my story. Um, because now being on the other side of it, it is very liberating. And that's also something that is my takeaway in all of this, that once you tell your story, you feel free. You feel like there's nothing that can stop you. And that's essentially what it's all about. Don't be ashamed of your story. It will inspire others.
Yes, like we always say, the story, it did. It happened to you, but the story isn't for you. It's for someone else. It's to help someone, to uplift them through the
I
hard,
believe that.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yes, and through the hard times, the difficulties, and the dark days. Because you go through a lot of dark days when you carry something like that with you, when you have trauma, when you're dealing with it, depression, anxiety, all of these things follow. And when you spend so much time there because you're not opening up or having a voice for yourself, you become a victim to yourself, and you die inside. It's not a way to live. The way to live is what she's doing today. She reached out, she got the help that she needed, she spoke about it, she told on her, the predator, the one that was grooming her, her father. These stories on this podcast, that this is why I have this, is because it's to help people like you and the next person that you may not know, but you work with or that you're friends with. You don't. It's a lot of stories, and so I give people a way and a platform so that they can share their stories and make a way for not only themselves but for others. And that's why we're here to share these stories with you. I would like to leave you with It's Fine Today. And this is by Douglas Malott. Sure, this world is full of trouble. I ain't said it ain't. Lord knows I've had enough and double reason for complaint. Rain and storm have come to fret me. Skies are often gray. Thorns and brambles have come to beset me on the road. But say, ain't it fine today? What's the use in always weeping, making trouble last? What's the use in always keeping thinking of the past? Each must have his tribulations, water with his wine. Life, it ain't no celebration trouble. I've had mine, but today's fine. It's today that I'm living, not a month ago, having, losing, taking, giving. As time wills it so. Yesterday, a cloud of sorrow fell across the way. It may rain again tomorrow. It may rain, but say, ain't it fine today? Thank you so much, Anna, for joining us. It's such an honor to have had you on this show today. You are such a beautiful woman, and you have a strong voice. And thank you so much for what you do, that you're giving back. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wu. I really appreciate the opportunity that you have given me to share my story. And you're just such a beautiful soul. And I can't wait to see your podcast grow and you giving more and more platform to other people that have gone through so many things. And I just know that you're just going to be that blessing for them like you were for me. Thank you so much.
You are welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Please like, share, follow. The stories that we share on this platform are real stories. They're not edited. They are just like how you see it. This is how we're giving it to you because they're true life stories. It's something that really happened in our lives. We don't get a chance to go back and edit it, but we do get a chance to go back and make it right. So we're giving it to you just like this, unfiltered and raw. So have a wonderful day. We wish you all well and nothing but the best. Peace and blessings to you all. Anna,
Thank you so much, guys. Appreciate it.
have a good day. Please reach out. Stay tuned. Thank you for your time. Enjoy. Bye for now.